There's two things I can do endlessly: boringly yapping about unimportant subjects and spending inconsiderably too long periods of time with my nose firmly wedged in between hoists of warrior skills in search for affirmation that I'm not in fact the biggest failure on earth, which affirmation I usually find quite swiftly, may I add. This time it's a whole family of examples. Ladies and gentlemen, behold the banners. And I can't even be mad for that at the current balance and design teams, because current lead heads were instated after banners got shafted, and if I had to guess the reason why old ones got fired, I'd put banner rework of 2019 as Exhibit A in my theory. Nonetheless, my disappointment is immeasurable, and this video is the result of it. Before we move forward with our regularly scheduled bullshit, consider visiting Bullshit Brigade's Discord server or supporting me through Patreon, so I can pay for the blood pressure medication I'm certainly going to need moving forward. Originally, banners were more than merely a deployable boon sprinkler. They could be picked up, wielded and carried like Elementalists' conjured weapons. Though unlike Elementalists' conjured weapons, only one instance of banner was created, and banners differed from banner to banner only with boons applied and stat passives, effectively being a cheap knockoff of conjured weapons. Even that was too good for us, however, so on March of 2019 ability to wield banners was removed from the game, and banners became fire and forget type of utility, essentially way worse wells designed to be upkept permanently, as if going from conjured weapon to a well wasn't bad enough of an idea already. This obviously was an idea as good as rubbing cayenne pepper juice into freshly depilated scrotum, and consequences of it reared its ugly head as swiftly as you may imagine. A class having 4 types of AoE base stat increase passives created a role so boring no one wanted to do it, and useful enough that every raid or fractal group seriously attempting to hard the content wanted one. Hence the term Banner Slave was created to describe said role Warrior was shoehorned into. Maybe because Arena eventually realized that this term being used to describe the class frequently represented in promotion materials by a bloke with very certain skin tone doesn't historically smell of good PR, or more likely because our Lord and Savior, the Great Hydrated One himself, descended upon this cursed land. Yet another rework of banners arrived on June of 2022. It was also a disaster. Banners were given baseline quickness application. And it went as well as you may have guessed. And so, mere month after, on August the 2nd of the same year, banners were reworked again, giving us the current version we know and are deeply disappointed by today. The philosophy of "we need to kill this thing before it lays eggs" doesn't really lead to well-realized and thought-through concepts being made. Much rather, anything that works for now is being pushed through so long it can be used to stop the spillage. This was exactly what happened to banners, and all of them, including Elite, suffered from being the combination of two entirely opposite design philosophies, putting burst utility on a skill meant for upkeep, with only the Elite being able to power through the sheer stupidity of that concept with its irreplaceable initial effect. Rest of banners are only worth utilizing for the sake of boon upkeep in only content known to be less popular than PvP. But let's not punch down so hastily. Maybe with addition of legendary Wing 8, raids will grow to become as popular as Guild Wars 2 signature dead game mode. Back to the topic. Banners as of current suffer the curse of the scuffed as many warrior skills do, except in their case is the design that drags them down, not the execution. Putting a strong initial effect and strong persisting effect on the same cooldown means neither the initial nor persisting effect can be strong enough to warrant attention as a standalone effect. Henceforth, as an example, Banner of Defense's initial effect is comparable with Call of Valor, a Warhorn skill which boasts almost the same amount of barrier but also cleanses in a massive area, and most importantly has much shorter cooldown, 10 seconds shorter in PvE and 20 seconds shorter in PvP. All because Banner possesses collective 20 seconds of regen. region you'll have to stay in banner range to benefit from. Brother, this is GW2. Whenever someone is allowed to stay in one place and not kite, it is called a bunker meta and is nerfed the absolute hell out of until the lemmings in tournaments agree to stop optimizing the fun out of the game for one bloody season. Staying in one place in GW2 is rather difficult, even in PvE, as Veil Guardian, Greer and Decima or Barbed Veil, and every boss with threatening AoEs can easily demonstrate. And now, apply the same logic to any scenario in PvP or World v World. You don't get to stay in one place anymore. You have to kite to stay alive, no matter what class or world build you play. For Warrior, taking banners outside of semi-controlled raid environment is not valuable enough in comparison to a stance for survival, a physical skill for movement, or CC, or a signet for just direct damage increase. Banners, because of their dual nature, have their power budgets diluted enough that they cannot truly work. The closest comparison that family of skills currently has are either signets or Herald's Facets, where signets lose their passives when used, on top of usually having more specific passive effects than application of core boons, and Facets are limited by Revenant's energy, cooldown, and by the fact that none of Facet passive effects can be active alongside its corresponding active effects. Banners are only set of skills where active and passive effects of this magnitude are both glued to the side of a fire and forget throwaway ability and asked to nicely share one cooldown. Arena has to be applauded for the fact that we are capable of forgetting that banners exist. A little worse judgment in terms of their power budget, and we have another episode of No One Dies on the Side, no the comedy skit, we have to suffer through every once or twice every year. That said, banners can't stay the way they are either, as the most optimistic scenario of their future would be staying forgotten and gathering dust until someone clueless to their history or original intent walks into ArenaNet's office and tries to balance them by tried and true method of increasing numbers without any sign of deeper thinking. Banners cannot be buffed, or else defense and tactics will eventually form new bunker meta, and currently nerfing them makes no sense either. The only way for banners to become worth a damn thing is another rework. And no, I do not mean revert to pre-2019 version. As much as that would be an improvement to current format, they would still need work to fit within current GW2 landscape. Having essentially 5 kits with the same skillset with different boons on each is a legendary example of cheapskating on development resources, and banners would have to be each elevated to the standard of conjured weapons for any of it to be worth the damned broken penny. Unfortunately, I don't think ArenaNet, known for cherishing and loving Warrior, is willing to pull the resources necessary to pull that thing through. Fortunately, there is something already existing which could be used to justly rework banners in a cheaper way. I'm talking about the optimal shitting position, also known as Dragon Trigger. Banners could easily function as something between a mantra, a dragon trigger, and a conjured weapon, and forging them into such would probably cost less resources, as each individual banner would need less unique animation, and they could realistically share more with each other, and their respective power budgets would be easier to comprehend and properly adjust. Let me elaborate on what I'm thinking about. Upon originally pressing the banner button, character would raise the banner, granting its specific benefit to itself and allies. Raising the banner could easily reuse natural healing's animation. Literally just slap corresponding banner in guy's hand and we're golden. Raising the banner would immediately grant access to a handful of banner skills, which would have 4 variants for each corresponding banner. Armored for defense, heavy for strength, barbed for discipline, and inspiring for tactics, and would cast corresponding AoE effects. Banner of defense, raise armored standard, a projectile denial dome lasting 2 seconds. Banner of strength, raise heavy standard, a charging CC similar to Scrapper's blast gyro, but with knockback instead of stun. Banner of discipline, raise barbed standard, a pulsing AoE similar to Flames of War, but with shorter duration. Banner of Tactics, raise Inspiring Standard, a singular pulse of barrier and cleanse similar to Call of Valor, but granting 1 cleanse and only half the barrier, and resistance instead of vigor. Aforementioned weapon banner skills, starting with, as we all seem to expect, auto attack. All auto attacks would copy staff 1-2 for their 1-2, but have different damage and third hit. Armored would be the baseline of power damage to which others are measured. Final hit of its chain would be a copy-paste of Pulverize effect-wise, but would use two-handed uppercut animation from Rush. Heavy would deal highest power damage, and have a copy of Hammer Smash as its final auto chain. Barbed would apply bleeding like sword autos do on top of its damage, and use Spear 5 animation, specifically the pirouette, to deliver a horizontal slash in front of you, applying 2 stacks of bleeding and cripple. Inspiring would be an exact copy of Staff's auto chain to the T. Skills 2 to 5 would give you options on how do you want to place your banner. With skill 2 you will have an option to leap forward and wedge your banner into the ground, reusing leap animation and properties of Earthshaker, and creating a temporary area with banner specific effects, same as when rising the banner. With skill 3 you will be able to throw it onto the ground, reusing Maiming Spear animation and targeting, and placing them where you aimed, creating a temporary area with banner specific effect, the same as with raising said banner. With skill 4 you place the banner on top of yourself, essentially raising it again and granting yourself a passive AoE effect around you for 30 seconds after or until you raise another banner. Armored passive, every time you disable or immobilize an opponent, lifesteal from them. Heavy passive, whenever you crit with a burst skill or disable an opponent, gain Might and Fury. Barbed passive, applying a non-damaging condition to an enemy, applies Torment as well. Inspiring passive, healing increased to others, and pulls resolution whenever in range of an ally. With skill 5, you would be able to chuck the banner like a spear and wedge it into your target opponent, knocking them back, making them revealed, and forcing them to suffer a debuff specific for each corresponding banner. This projectile would be unblockable. Armored debuff, this enemy cannot critically hit you for the duration of the debuff. Heavy debuff, you will ignore effects of conditions affecting you like blindness or weakness, and boons affecting this enemy like protection or aegis when attacking this enemy. Barbed debuff, the enemy is crippled and tormented every second. First time you immobilize them while this effect is active, they are feared. Inspiring debuff, this enemy gets knocked down instead of getting knocked back and gets 1 boon corrupted every second, prioritizing protection and resolution. Each debuff lasts 6 seconds or until you raise another banner. If you wedge the banner into the ground, you can retrieve it once, as banner button gets replaced by Retrieve Banner, a short quick dash towards the banner's current location, granting you effect that will retrieve said banner upon collision, meaning you can proc the banner raising effect max 3 times, if you place the banner on yourself or the ground again after retrieving it. Each of banner weapon skills have the same cooldown as banner does, meaning you can only use each once. And you can only retrieve banner once, meaning from skills 2 to 4 you can only use 2. When your banner comes off cooldown, it automatically refreshes all its cooldowns, meaning you could hold on to retrieving your old banner and use one of its skills right before it disappears, to make 3 banner skill combo. Base cooldown for each banner I conceptualize to be within 30-40 second range, and both banner passives and debuffs are removed once new banner is raised, because banners were conceptualized to be this type of skill that you only need one of. Doubled standard trait would be changed to giving your Retrieve Banner skill 1 stack of ammunition, so you can use 3, not 2 banner skills. I don't see the real reason to really change battle standard. It's the only revive utility in the game I consider well made in terms of power budget and rest of the bonanza. But if you really want to see how I would add battle standard to my rework concept, you can always convince or threaten me in the comments. For this material, however, that's all. If you have different concepts or ideas, feel free to share them in the comments. And if you really want to see more, Patreon provides a really good way of convincing me to make more. Speaking of which, a special sign of gratitude towards generous Patreon supporters who continuously consider my garbage content worth their money. You're all truly welcome. Crabface out.